welcome. I want you to take a moment and think about the one thing that scares you the most. Just thinking about it may fill you right now with panic. Maybe it's spiders or heights or even gripping anxiety from public speaking. Now, if what scares you the most takes over your decision making or limits you in your daily life situations, then you may have what's known as a phobia. Now, phobias usually start in childhood, and they can be caused by genetics, cultural factors, or most likely a traumatic experience. Now, today's guests are a young woman and her mother who narrowly escaped a shocking disaster. Their car burned and exploded just moments after they got out. And in the aftermath, the young lady has become overwhelmed with panic and anxiety. Now, she has developed a phobia of riding inside a car. She'll leap out, and sometimes in traffic, at the slightest noise. She suffers nightmares about death and fire, and she is here today so we can talk with her about this whole situation and bring some healing and perhaps help you deal with your darkest fears. I'm Creflo, and this is your world.
Changing one life, time after time. Oh Lord, we do it all for you.
Through the trials I see, I'll always believe a new life starts with me. Oh,
Change your world today. Change is gonna come your way. Change and get an understanding. His grace will transform you.
My guests today are 14-year-old Alyssa and her mother, Cammie. Now, after a very traumatic experience with a burning car, Alyssa has been gripped with nightmares, panic attacks, and fear. Her mother wants to help her daughter any way she can, and they are here today to hopefully find relief. Would you please welcome Alyssa and her mother, Cammie, to your world? Thank you for coming. Thank you so much for coming. Wow, I am looking forward to this one because this is big.
Never experienced anything
Never experienced
like this.
anything like
Don't
this
care
before.
to ever again.
So this is your world, and on this show, we want you to take us into your world. Now, I understand you and your husband were in a car accident together. What happened with that situation?
We had just left the house. She was really little. Last moment, left her at home, and my husband had to be at a dentist appointment. So we left. On the way out, it was maybe a mile from home, stopped to get gas, and upon stopping to turn into the gas station, someone rear-ended us and demolished the car. The trunk was in the back seat. My husband had to be extricated out of the car. At the time, I wasn't for sure if he was alive or not because they took me out of the car and put me in the ambulance, and they covered him up because all the glass inside the car shattered.
Wow.
So it was pretty scary. And our other kids at home could hear all the sirens and stuff, but they didn't know it was us at the time.
How did you ensure your family's safety after this particular accident?
Well,
you got kids and this
yes.
just happened.
After that, we decided to buy a Suburban because having children, we wanted to make sure we were safe.
Were there any injuries? You talked about they covered your husband up. Were you okay in that?
As well as you can be from
Yeah.
something that bad.
Now, let's get to the burning car. I want you to take your time with this and take us, because this is really the highlight of the story and where a lot of situations come from. We said at the beginning of the program that a lot of fears and phobias, sometimes they're initiated through some type of traumatic experience. And certainly this would go under the category of a traumatic experience. Take us into that day and that event, and let's talk about that.
Well, we went to a doctor's appointment for Alyssa. We left the doctor's appointment and we're on a side of town that we don't live. So she asked to stop and eat at a restaurant that she hasn't ate very much. I really didn't want to stop. Finally, she kept on about being hungry, so I stopped. And when we got to the restaurant, we stopped and sat there for a few minutes because she wanted me to go in. I was going to stay in the car. And she kept saying, no, go in with me. Finally, I said, okay. We got out of the car, went into the restaurant, and ordered her food. I stepped outside, made a phone call, and then heard a tapping on the glass. And then I looked up to see her just pointing blankly at our car. And I turned to the car, and at that point I just saw smoke coming from the windshield of the car. Didn't look like it was on fire, it was white smoke, so I called 911 and ran to the car. I opened the car door, there was no fire, just some smoke. So at that point all I could think was, get out what you can in case anything happens. I opened the back door and grabbed my pocketbook and turned back to grab something, and it exploded. So.
It was like no one cared because everyone they were just recording and asking for the videos, and they didn't even ask if anyone was in the car.
Here you go, sweetheart. So it's interesting that as we talk about this situation, the first thing you bring up is how other people were reacting to this situation. What were you expecting from basic citizens and human beings when something like that would happen?
I would at least expected they would ask if anyone was in the car or if anyone got out okay.
But instead they were taking pictures. Did you get a chance to see their reaction? Were they taking it seriously? Were they?
They were just joking about it, and this one guy, he was recording, and these little kids, cause it's the restaurant is beside a school, and they were all running around recording it and stuff, and it just really made me upset and angry.
How did you feel about seeing people doing that and experiencing what she just talked about?
I was really upset. I mean, like she said, nobody ran to us and said, is anybody in the car? Are you okay? Can I help you? It was just about, hey, can you send me that video, and recording, and then you saw more people pulling on the side of the road and running and recording. So it was just very disheartening to see society act the way they did. You would expect people to care,
Audience, I don't know how that moves you, but I'm thinking are you kidding me? It just kind of lets you know where we are in today's time where, people are so self-centered. I mean, because that's self-centeredness.
She said what hit me the most is she said she realized what technology has done to us, desensitized us to real world experiences.
I'm having to get over this because, I've got to watch my words carefully, but it's how in the world are you so concerned about the views you get on the social media and not the lives of the people that are involved?
I mean, even the firefighters were laughing and joking around.
Okay,
and
so.
We were like, this is not funny, and they're like, we see this every day. We don't. So when it's your possessions in your life that's you see burning before you and explosions, it's not funny.
That is what I call insensitivity of heart, where you can be so insensitive to the needs of people, so insensitive to the compassion of people. And let me say this is why the Church of Jesus Christ has really got to rise up and stand. People have lost the type of character, integrity, morality, and just plain on care for mankind, for one another. And we've got to demonstrate that walk of love and concern and care, that when you see somebody in need, when you see a brother or sister in need, that we respond to help the need, and that we're not so concerned about, the different clicks we can get on our social media. To me, this is such an egregious thing. I'm having a hard time trying to find the words to describe my emotions right now. I mean, I'm putting myself in your position, and you just made it out by the grace of God, and somebody wants to poke fun. I was not expecting to hear that. And I don't know about you, audience, but that is just, Like I say, there's just so many words going through my head right now to describe something like that. And I just want to apologize you from the perspective of mankind that everybody's not like that. There are some people in this world that are caring and loving and concerned, but unfortunately, there are jokers in this world that don't get it and they don't have a clue. And I'm believing that God's love and grace will impact this world like never before, and we can make a difference so that people don't have to go through this kind of stuff. It should not have happened, amen? Should not have happened. I'm not supposed to get emotional, but I've never heard anything like this before. Listen, let's talk about the aftermath of this situation happening, what you saw, what you experienced, emotionally, what you went through as a result of this. I mean, that was pretty close. Take us into your world on how this has impacted you emotionally.
So like, one of our family members owned us a car, like for us to use like while we get a new car. And that car, it would like overheat and smoke and stuff. And she ran into the grocery store because like I didn't want to go in. And so like the car started overheating and smoking, and I literally ran, left the keys and everything in the car and ran and found her and told her, and like it just scared me because like I was scared that the same thing was gonna happen.
Yeah. And part of that is not unusual, and part of that can be, expected after you've experienced a traumatic experience of the beginning of this explosion, started off with smoke, so we can understand that. Mm-hmm. Was there anything else that happened now as you begin to see the progression from the actual fire and explosion to experiencing the smoke from this borrowed car to what next?
I would just wake up having panic attacks where like I couldn't breathe, and I just have to sit there, and like I'd be really hot and I'd just have to sit there and take deep breaths and calm down until I got like calmed down.
I'm going to read some things to you, and we think it's pretty obvious. There are fear motivators, and I want you to identify the one that you feel started motivating you. There's the fear of failure. There's the fear of success. There's the fear of dying. There's the fear of commitment or intimacy. I think the obvious one would be what that you have to deal with.
Fear of dying.
The fear of dying. And that fear of dying now begins to become the motivator to creating phobias. Okay, now one of the things that that I want you to recognize is that fear is not tangible in this world. It's a strong emotion that's in your mind. I believe the Word of God is truth. And so the book of Job says the thing that we fear the most can come upon us. And what happens is if the enemy wants to destroy a life, he first of all has to instill fear, because fear gives him a platform to try to operate in a person's life. And it's like panic and fear go together. Panic is groundless fear. And in other words, I'm afraid, but there's no real reason to be afraid. Now, because of the situations that have happened in your past, it goes from caution and then it progressed to fear. And now there's one side of your brain that says, you know what, this doesn't exist. And then there's another side of your brain that says, well, fear is here, so in my mind it does exist. You follow what I'm saying? And so I want you to take the things that you had to deal with and give us the progression. It began to intensify when in your life? When did you start noticing that this is becoming something that's pretty consistent in my life?
After like I started having nightmares.
Okay. Yeah, isn't that amazing? You start, again, we're having nightmares. It's in our mind. It's a very strong emotion. And so, if we can separate this emotion of fear from the reality of what needs to happen, I think we'll be able to deal with it. So here's some things I put together for you. Listen to these words. Fear is an illusion. It's neither tangible or visible. It's an illusion. All right, now let's go to the next point. Think about this. It exists in our minds and not in the world. It only exists in our minds, but it doesn't exist in the world. All right, you got those two? All right. We bring fear to life. It's in our minds, we bring fear to life. It exists in our minds and it manifests through our actions. Isn't it interesting? Fear is working hard on you to try to give birth to it. That's crazy, isn't it? Think about this now, because I want to show you how much authority you really have over this. Even to the point where there may be times where you say, now that I know you're not real, now that I know you're an illusion, now I know you're trying to torment me up here to get me to try to give you life, I now respond to you by saying, you're not real. No, you're not real. You're just real in my mind, and I'm gonna start dealing with you even in my mind. All right, watch this very carefully now. If fear is allowed to hang around, fear that is tolerated will contaminate your faith. So fear tolerated is faith contaminated. So what I believe, whether I'm believing in God to help me or I'm believing in some principle of the word to help me, if I tolerate fear long enough, it'll eventually start trying to cause some erosion with what I believe. I mean, you're smart, you're an awesome young lady, you've got a great future ahead of you, and I've got to say this, I normally don't say this real quick, you got something special about you that the devil wants to stop before you come into it. There's a calling on our lives. I believe there's a mission in our lives and things we've been called to do. Now I'm going to ask your mom just to give me a list of some of the special things that you've noticed about your daughter.
She's very unique.
Very unique, right?
Very sassy.
Yeah. Leaders are sassy. All leaders who grow up to be leaders when they were young, ask their mama, they were sassy.
Yeah. She helps out so much. You know.
Servant.
Yes.
Yeah.
So.
I just believe that, one of the greatest ways to attack a person, I was diagnosed with cancer one time, and because I understood fear, the first thing I fought was not the physical part of cancer, it was the fear of dying from cancer. And what I began to do, I moved in, there were only 4 ways to deal with the cancer. Because of my study and the tenacity to find out more, I now have 365 ways to deal with it, and now I'm completely cancer-free because I dealt with the fear of it, because the fear was attacking me at first, and I'm thinking, no, I'm not gonna bring you to pass. And I would walk around saying, I will live and not die. I walk around saying, I'm healed, I've been healed for the whole time. And so what happens is, I learned from that how to deal with the thoughts. I'm gonna show you something real quick now. I want you to count from 1 to 10 in your mind without opening your mouth. Go. Now say your name.
Alyssa.
What happened to the counting?
It went away.
It stopped because it had to hear what you were getting ready to say out your mouth. That's the exact same way you can deal with those fear-filled thoughts. Rather than sitting there and allowing those thoughts to torment you, and you sit there and you're just kind of like, people gonna think you're crazy sitting up there. What you do is you open your mouth and you speak contrary to that thought. So if fear's going there, you say, no, I don't live by fear, it's not real, you will not control my life. It pulls that thought down. So that's how you cast a thought down and make it obey what you're saying. And you are too awesome to allow your whole life to be tormented by fear. Fear adds torment. So you know what I want you to start doing? I want you to wake up in the morning and look at the mirror when you're doing your stuff. And I want you to look right in the mirror and say, girl, you awesome. Look at me and tell me that.
Girl, you're awesome.
And then you're not talking to me, you're talking to yourself. I'm the mirror. Say this out loud. Say, I'm awesome.
I'm awesome.
Say, I'm amazing.
I'm amazing.
Yeah, you believe that too. You should see your affect. You're like, I'm awesome. Mm-hmm. I'm amazing. Sure is. All right, now watch this now. If you recognize fear, you must understand fear is a decision To operate in fear is a decision. You have to decide to operate in fear. So if you can decide to operate in fear, guess what? You can decide what? Not to operate in fear. No fear here. No more fear. Say it, no fear here.
No fear here.
Say, no more fear.
No more fear.
It's a decision. No fear here. Say it again.
No fear here.
All right, some of you who are watching right now, we're walking you through some of the steps right now. You say it, no fear here. You're making a decision, I will not allow fear to govern my life. Because when you can conquer fear, the phobia will disappear. It'll go away. Mom, what are some of the things you have seen at home as a result of her dealing with this fear and phobia?
Panic attacks, just fear of hearing noises that she doesn't know what it is. A lot of anxiety and panic sets in.
Yeah. You know, phobias can be the cause of creating new phobias. And you can go from one phobia to another phobia. And so that's why it's important to deal with this fear. I want to give you a book I wrote. It's been some time back, and I'm going to give you a tried and true copy. It's called Overcoming Fear, Eliminating the Bondage of Fear. And I think every time you find yourself being confronted with it, go read a couple of pages out of this book. Use this to help in your war against overcoming fear. Mm-hmm. All is well with you, young lady. I'm glad you're alive. I'm glad that what he intended to do to wipe you out didn't work. I'm glad your mom's alive. I'm glad your dad's alive. All is well with you. Okay? All is well. There you go, sweetheart. You know, when dealing with fear, you need to realize that Satan operates and uses things found in the natural realm. His tactic is to convince you that the thing you can see and hear are more real than the truth of God's word. When you depend on what you can see rather than on God and on what God has said in his word, fear cannot have its way, leaving you crippled and impacting your life in a negative way. It just won't happen. Now, audience, our viewers at home, and Alyssa, I want you to repeat after me. I want everybody to say this after me. I renounce the spirit of fear.
The spirit of fear.
Including every phobia.
Including every phobia.
Every inferiority. And every insecurity.
And every insecurity.
I will not fear.
I will not fear.
I will not give place to the devil.
I will not give place to the devil.
I walk in faith.
I walk in faith.
And I walk by the word.
And I walk by the word.
Amen.
Amen.
Okay. Listen, thank you for joining me today. Be sure to reach out to us online at yourworldwithcreflo.com and stay connected with me on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. I look forward to hearing your story. God bless you, and I'll see you next time right here on Your World.
There is an unseen, unknown force keeping you paralyzed, locked away from a life of joy and hope for the future. It's called fear, and it is a hunter. Fear seeks to leave you in ruin. Fear is a lie, and for you to succeed in life, it must be destroyed. For God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of a sound mind. Today you met Alyssa. Through one horrible incident, this hopeful young woman succumbed to fear. This fear almost robbed her of her future. But right here on Your World, she experienced God's enduring grace and began the process of healing and kicked fear out of doors.
No more fear. Say it, no fear here.
No fear here.
Say, no more fear.
No more fear.
It's a decision. No fear here. Say it again.
No fear here.
Now it's your turn. It's time for you to look fear in the face and win. Your victory starts with Creflo Dollar's brand new Grace-Filled collection, exclusively available on today's program. First, you'll receive Creflo's best-selling hardcover book, Overcoming Fear. Chapter by chapter, Creflo uses scripture and powerful personal testimony to show you how to eliminate any type of fear imaginable from your lives, freeing you from the enemy's bondage and solidifying your faith. Then continue to reinforce your understanding of how fear operates with Creflo Dollar's mini book, No Fear Here. In this easy read, Creflo Dollar explains why tolerating fear wreaks havoc in your life. In just a few minutes, you'll discover the different ways that fear manifests, why you don't have to be subject to it, and how to evict it from your life for good. Want more? Not only will you receive both books, but you'll also get the interview you just saw, uncut and in its entirety. All this for your love gift of $45 or more. Don't let fear or insecurity stop you from experiencing all that God has in store for you. The time to overturn the tables on the enemy and conquer your fears starts with Creflo Dollar's 2 books on fear, Overcoming Fear, and the mini book No Fear Here, plus the uncut version of today's powerful program for your tax-deductible love gift of $45 or more. Call the number below right now.
Look at all the people around us. They're all so different, and yet every one of us is an image bearer of God. Diversity is normal. It is necessary. It's a cause for celebration. Prejudice and discrimination, on the other hand, is corrosive. It eats away at our communities and destroys our trust and respect for one another.
We are all entitled to the same opportunities, rights, and privileges. Visit taffydollar.org to support the mission.
When visiting New York and Atlanta, join Creflo Dollar at World Changers Church International. Service times are Saturdays at 6 p.m., Sundays at 10 a.m., and Wednesdays at 7 p.m. For more information, visit us online at creflodollarministries.org. Because of you, Creflo Dollar Ministries is providing a new understanding of grace and empowering change in the lives of millions of people every day. Thank you, partners and friends. Your love and financial support makes it possible to bring this message into millions of homes all across the globe.